Ricky looked around and there was a car revving back, then ramming forward into the building. A rigged-together ramp of sorts was enabling the car to overcome the stairs obstacle. The two giant potted plants had been moved out of the way, and the pillars didn't provide any additional protection from vehicles the size of a car. Ricky wasn't sure how long the doors could last, as enforced as they likely were. Nothing lasted forever, and there was infinite cars around to try to smash through the front of the building with. These crazies could have tried looking through each of the cars for a key card to try to get through, but Ricky imagined their protocols locked down. Probably so well done that nobody would ever leave a key pass in their vehicle where someone could steal it. He imagined every employee had to badge themselves in, that every extra card would be accounted for or deactivated if someone left the company. He hoped. Ricky knew he couldn't fight them all alone. He had maybe 15 to 20 rounds of buckshot and 8 slugs. For the buckshot to be most effective, he needed to be within 30 yards. He needed a distraction or diversion to lure them in. As he was thinking, another one of their heads exploded. 49 more to go, and with that thought several more came in from the forest on the other side. Ricky figured maybe that's where their main base was, but there was no way to know. He could as easily accidentally walk into it on the side he was on. Ricky was hopelessly outnumbered, even with Beninka watching him. But what choice was there? These psychos couldn't be allowed to take over the outlying areas of the state. It wouldn't be safe for Ricky or Beninka or even little Martina at their stronghold. Eventually these psychos would come for them. If they could overrun one of the most defensible structures like this, what chance did anyone else have? Ricky did the only thing that came to mind. He hid in the brush and started making a dying animal noise. Ricky didn't know what kind of animal noise to make or what size to pretend he would be, so he took a bush with one hand and a tree branch with the other. He did the best impression of a dying animal he could. After a couple of branch swishing, he realized that as high as they were on whatever, that who knows what it would sound like to them. It got one or two's attention, then 3 or 4. The car battering ram stopped, and then slowly people started making their way over across the parking lot. They were still 100 yards away, which was too far. Ricky kept making his dying animal racket, but didn't make himself sound too strong, or like there was more than one. He didn't want to scare everyone off, after all. Ricky couldn't make up his mind whether to sound like a moose or a chicken, and then realized he hadn't heard what other animals sounded like for a while besides birds, so it ended up sounding like a crow. When he got the bulk of their attention, Ricky quietly shifted back into the brush. He silently waited, and the sniper from the roof stopped firing. Probably also curious. A momentary calm washed over the parking lot suddenly, and even with all the modified street drugs and the crazy system, they still seemed to know something exciting was about to happen. The first husks of people broke the forest line and were nearly looking directly at Ricky, but still not putting 2 and 2 together. He had no idea exactly what their mind had framed it to be looking for, but he wasn't it with his shorter stature and stocky frame. Ricky could tell their eyes could focus, though, because they recognized the barrel leveled at them. However, by then it was too late for the husks. 8+1 emptied very quick, and 9 bodies crumpled in the forest. Craters appeared where corrupted flesh was seconds earlier. Ricky dived under a log he was positioned to as improvised weapons and a few bullets flew wild over his head. Ricky immediately began reloading slugs as 2 heavier rifles started shooting down into the crowd in the parking lot that didn't commit to breaking the forest line. The bolt clicking of the guy on the roof as he popped crazy heads like it was an art form to him and a matter of pride. The second rifle, Benika's shredding people at the front, trying to give Ricky a break so he could reload. Within moments, it seemed like Benika and the guy on the roof were having a contest to see which could get blood splattered in the other's direction as Ricky popped back up to dump slugs into whoever was left. 3 more were in the forest line, and Ricky got all 3 as they were looking where he previously was. Giant holes now in their chests where drug-infused body used to be. Ricky tactically reloaded whatever shells he could find into his shotgun to keep it topped off, knowing he didn't have many shells left, or even knowing what the shells contained. Some of the shells seemed to be the wrong colors, and he remembered there being a miscellaneous box he loaded at the bottom of the bandolier with. Several more tweaker junkies broke into the forest, trying to escape the sniping contest going outside. Ricky introduced each one to a gigantic slug out of his rifle barrel. It was like hitting each of them with a .50 caliber miniature cannonball at 1,800 feet per second. All the drugs in the world weren't going to keep these tweakers going. While the entry wound was already substantial, they had baseball hole sizes coming out their exits as they fell near Ricky. He kept reloading as fast as he could, finishing off his slugs into the immediate risks as more entered the forest. One he shot in the face, but the round didn't immediately go off. Not anticipating this, Ricky was already onto the next target with a flechette round that shredded the person. As he was screaming, Ricky went to the prior target, who was closing in, wondering what happened. Right as Ricky was in range of the psycho's machete, his face exploded. He began running around screaming, thinking his head was on fire before he finally fell. The second target kept coming at Ricky as Ricky racked the charging handle of his shotgun. The guy had deep cuts all over him, but seemed to not feel the pain. The next round from Ricky's gun was super bright in the shadowed forest as magnesium burned off and set the psycho on fire. Ricky realized he had a hatchet when he dropped it and began running around, tripping out. The psycho ran face first into a tree and knocked himself out cold, still on fire. Ricky slammed the rest of the ammo into the magazine tube and checked the chamber, which had a round in it, thankfully, although what the round was, Ricky had no idea. Hopefully it was something good. Looked like a 3-inch shell. In fact, the rest did. Some of the crazies were crawling around, not realizing they were mortally wounded from all the drugs they were on. Ricky went and finished each of them off rightly with his pig axe, so they would feel no more pain. When he was all done, he carefully snuck out to the tree line and yelled, "Don't shoot! Don't shoot! It's me! Please don't shoot!" Despite not being able to see her, Ricky felt Beninka try to cover him by keeping her rifle pointed at the other sniper. The two were likely pointing their rifles at each other and not at him at this point. Nobody alive was left in the parking lot. It looked like the blood spattered in each direction was fairly equal. Ricky mused that the person with the bolt gun had started intentionally hitting vital organs to cause maximum blood loss so they could win the little sniper off the two had been having. Soon a voice yelled down from the top of the building in a voice that didn't sound like it came someone above 20 years old. "Go ahead, you're fine. I won't shoot if you aren't bad guys." Ricky was amazed. Just a kid, he thought to himself, a boy, now a man, due to all of these horrible circumstances. Ricky walked out into the clearing and started checking bodies. He felt Benika's hesitation and didn't mind. She was the most important anyway and had to stay safe, Ricky confirmed to himself. Ricky looked around and made sure no more crazies were going to come out of the clearing. He wished he had an optic, but usually relied on his friends to relay situational awareness. Ricky tried to reach out with his senses, but there was too much death and frenetic energy scrambling him. He needed to rest. Hopefully the two snipers would direct their rifles off each other and scan the forest line now to make sure nobody was going to ambush them. Ricky looked at the car and the person had got out of it to be a part of the rush. Ricky thanked himself that they hadn't thought to slam the car into the forest. Maybe their tweaker brains thought it would scare away the dying creature or whatever. Either way, Ricky got in the vehicle and put it in neutral and pushed it away. He didn't want to get in that car. Who knew if there were hidden needle traps? Once the vehicle was pushed away enough, Ricky took the keys and threw them at the door of the building. They bounced off the shatterproof window material and clattered onto the concrete. The sound like so much change falling out of a pocket when you're in the middle of trying to cross a parking lot and all the cars are waiting for you. While Ricky waited for everyone to relax from the situation, he looked at the bodies. The skin was ravaged from parasite and insect attacks. Some of them were malformed from something that seemed to attack their DNA and bone structure. Some had people bite marks, and they all had many injection sites. Ricky didn't like it at all, as people messing with synthetics were so dangerous and unpredictable. He remembered the gangs in the city selling stuff like that before the collapse. When the separatists wiped the gangs out that wouldn't ally up, Ricky guessed this area was where the bulk of the production originated. Ricky couldn't be concerned about the production operations now. He needed to get into that building because it wouldn't be safe out here for long. He backed up a bit and tried to look up to the roof, but couldn't see where the sniper was. Ricky walked out to the windows and peered inside. Everything looked nice and neat inside, but he couldn't see anyone. He imagined nearly everything being underground. He saw himself in the reflection and realized he looked silly. He made a few faces until he found one that made him chuckle. Ricky then went back to a serious face and saw an attractive girl walking towards him in the reflection. He turned around and there was Benika and her little rat pal, looking around frantically.